Hey guys, today I'm going to teach you how to use the quadratic formula. So what this formula allows us to do is find the roots or the solutions where the parabola crosses the x-axis, and it helps us find imaginary roots. It allows us to find decimal roots. It allows us to find whole number roots. It doesn't matter what or where the parabola crosses the x-axis, we can come up with a solution. Sometimes we have quadratics that we can't solve by factoring or that we can't solve by completing the square. But this allows us to solve all quadratics as long as the a value is not 0. So what is the quadratic formula? I like to sing it because singing sticks with me. And when I had a student teacher a couple years ago, we had a lot of fun with this. We would say x equals negative b plus or minus d square root of b squared minus 4ac. And then I would point at him and he would go, all over 2a in his opera voice. So you will hear me do that constantly. Negative b plus or minus d square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, because I don't know why it just sticks with me. Just don't forget that all over 2a, because that's pretty important. So in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to use the quadratic formula to solve each of these 4 equations. Some of them have different stories that go with them, but we are going to solve all 4 of them. So let's jump in and get started. Example 1. At the World Championship Pumpkin Chunkin contest, pumpkins are launched hundreds of yards. The path of a pumpkin can be modeled by h equals negative 16t squared plus 124.4t plus 42, where h is the height in feet and t is the number of seconds after it is launched. So let's think about this. If we are talking about our pumpkin chunkin contest and we're imagining this parabola. Okay, so this plus 42 is where it crosses the y-axis. So I know that it must be launched from 42 feet in the air, which doesn't really make sense to me, but that's okay. So at time 0, it's 42, and it reaches its height somewhere and then drops back down to the ground. So we've got a couple roots here. We're going to have a negative root and we're going to have a positive root. I know that by looking at my graph, right? Knowing that this plus 42 is where it crosses the y-axis. So and I know that it's a negative or it's a frowny face parabola because it's negative. So there's a few things I know. And I know that this isn't going to make any sense in terms of this pumpkin chunkin contest problem because, the pumpkin's not going to hit the ground before it's ever launched. It might be sitting on the ground, but, this is kind of irrelevant. So we're going to be able to find 2 roots, but the only one that's going to make sense in the context of this pumpkin chunkin contest problem is this one out here. So let's use this quadratic formula and get started doing it. So I'm going to first begin by writing down what is my A, B, and C. So my value for A is negative 16. So A equals negative 16, B equals 124.4, and C equals 42. All right, so we're going to plug it in. Negative B, negative 124.4 plus or minus the square root of B squared, 124.4 squared, minus 4A, 4 times A times C, which is 42. All over 2A. So all over 2 times negative 16. All right, so now what we have to do is simplify. I always begin by simplifying here what's underneath of the square root symbol. This is called the discriminant, but let's begin by simplifying that first. So I'm going to use my handy-dandy calculator because I don't know what 124.4 squared is without typing it in. Whoo, it's a big number. It is 15475.36. Then I'm going to go ahead and multiply negative 4 times negative 16 times a positive 42. I focused in. This is minus 4, but it's a negative 4, negative 16, positive 42. So multiply all those together, and I get a positive 2688. So I'm going to put plus 2688. Can't forget my negative b plus or minus d. And I can't forget all over 2a minus negative 32, or negative 32. Okay, so now we're still underneath of this square root symbol. So 15475.36 plus 2688 is 1,000, no, let's see here, 18,163.36. So again, negative 124.4 plus or minus the square root of 18163.36 all over negative 32. So we can go ahead and take the square root of that big number. Square root of 18163.36 is 134.77. So I'm just going to write negative 124.4 plus or minus 134.8. Notice I did not put the square root symbol. I already took the square root. That's where I came up with this. So I don't need to write the square root symbol anymore. Minus, or all over negative 32. So negative 124.4 plus 134.8 is equal to 10.4 divided by negative 32 gives me negative 0.325. But we don't care about that one because remember that doesn't make any sense in terms of our problem. So let's try it again. Negative 124.4 minus 134.8 is negative 259.2, all divided by negative 32. That gives me 8.1. So my root that makes sense is the 8.1. So that tells me this is my value for t. T is equal, time is equal to 8.1 seconds. We had time is equal to negative 3.25 and time is equal to 8.1. So after 8.1 seconds, our pumpkin chunkin contest, chunker, I guess, is the person that throws it, their pumpkin reached or after 8 seconds, it hit the ground again. So they launched it up into the air, boom, 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 and then it starts falling and it hits the ground at 8.1 seconds, after 8.1 seconds. So that's what this problem told me. I never ever heard her tell of a pumpkin chunkin contest. Sounds like fun though. All right, example 2, a diver jumps from a diving platform that's 10 meters high. Her arc can be modeled by the equation negative 4.9x squared plus 2.5x plus 10, where y is her height in meters and x is her time in seconds. Find and interpret the roots. Pause the video right now, get out your piece of paper, try this problem. All right, so again, we've got negative b, so negative 2.5 negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Okay, if you guys didn't know before that I was weird, you'll really know after this video. So let's go ahead and solve our discriminant. What's underneath of the square root? So I'm just going to punch it into the calculator. 2.5 squared is 6.25. So I've got 6.25 minus 4 times a minus 4.9, or a negative, times 10 gives me a positive 196, so plus 196. We'll go ahead and add that to my 6.25, and I get 202.25. So I've got negative 2.5 plus or minus the square root of 202.25 all over negative 4.9 times 2, which is negative 9.8. This is going to give us our values of x when y equals 0. So x equals, let's take the square root of this beast. Square root of 202.25 is 14.22. I'm going to round it to the nearest tenth, so I'm just going to do 14.2. So I've got negative 2.5 plus or minus 14.2. All of that is divided by negative 9.8. So negative 2.5 plus 14.2. I go ahead and hit enter and then divide by negative 9.8. Gives us negative 1.19. So this equals negative 1.2 basically. Let's type it in again. Negative 2.5 minus 14.2 equals, divide that by negative 9.8 equals 1.7. So my roots are negative 1.2 and a positive 1.7. Now remember, this is her jumping off of the diving board. So the diving board is 10 meters up in the air. 10 meters. And this is like what our graph looks like. Woo! And this value right here is 1.7. And this value right here is negative 1.2. So this tells me that once she launches into the air, or dives, I guess, she comes back down, and this is time in seconds. So 1.7 seconds later, she hits the water. This problem right here doesn't make sense. This root does not make sense in terms of this problem. So we know that our only root that makes sense is 1.7, and that tells us that she enters the water 1.7 seconds after she launches off the diving board. All right, next problem. Go ahead and pause and solve using the quadratic formula. It's even nice and included it here for you. So pause the video and try this on a piece of paper. Negative b plus or minus d square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so 4 squared is 16. So I've got 16 minus 4. Oh, it's going to be plus because a negative times a negative makes it a positive. 4 times 1 times 17 is 68. Okay, so I'm just going to write this. This is, again, giving us our x value, so I should include that piece of information. Negative 4 plus or minus, I haven't taken the square root yet. I've just simplified 4 squared and 4 times 17 all over 2. So 16 plus 68 is 84. I'm going to go ahead and take the square root of 84. Square root of 84 is 9.165, so I'm going to make it 9.2, just rounding to the nearest tenth. So negative 4 plus or minus 9.2 all over 2. So negative 4 plus 9.2 divided by 2 is 2.6. And negative 4 minus 9.2, enter, divided by positive 2, is negative 6.6. So these are my values of x. So x equals this and this. This is my solution set. 2.6 and negative 6.6. Now, if we wanted to keep this as a real root, let's say that we don't want to round, we want an exact answer. We could go back up here to this step right here and say, okay, we've got negative 4 plus or minus, this was the square root of 84, I believe. Let me double check that. 16 plus 68 is 84, yes. Okay, so I don't know about you, but I like exact answers. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, 84 might be divisible by 16, maybe? Nope, it's not. 84 might be divisible by 4. 4 and 21. Why would I choose 4 and 16 to check? Those are perfect squares, right? So 4 and 21, I'm going to rewrite this as negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 times the square root of 21, all divided by 2, because I know the square root of 4 is 2. So I've got negative 4 plus or minus, square root of 4 is 2. Then I got the square root of 21. I can't break that down any further. And then divided by 2. Well, this is divisible by 2, and this is divisible by 2. Each of the terms are divisible by 2, so I can simplify. So I have negative 4 divided by 2 is just negative 2. So I have negative 2 plus or minus 2 divided by 2 is 1, so I'm left with the square root of 21. So these are my values of x. X equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 21. Or if we want to simplify it, we don't want an exact answer, we want it rounded to the nearest tenth, these are my answers. Either way you go, It depends on what the wording of the problem is. This just said to solve it using the quadratic formula. It didn't specify. But if the problem asked for the exact solution, you would have to leave it here because this one we just rounded our answers. So I would like for you to solve this, and I would like for you to give me an exact solution, and I would like for you to round it to the nearest tenth. Both. I want both the exact, and then I want it rounded to the nearest tenth. I'm going to pause the video for the sake of time, and I'm going to work it out. You're going to pause your video, and you're going to work it out, and then we're going to reconvene. Okay, so I've made it this far. Negative b plus or minus d square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Plugged it all in, and I am working on under the discriminant. And I went ahead and paused or unpaused and started recording again because I have this negative under there. Remember, if I have the negative square root, that's going to give me I, right? So this gives me negative 8 plus or minus I, and then the square root of 156. All I did was I factored out that negative 1 and changed it to an I, or took out the square root of, I simplified, square root of negative 1 is I. Okay, so 156, well, I think that's divisible by 4. Let's check it out. 156 divided by 4 is 39. I know that 39 is not divisible by any other perfect squares, so I'm going to rewrite this as negative 8 plus or minus I square root of 4 times the square root of 39. It's just rewriting square root of 56, right? 4 times 39 is 156 divided by 10. Okay, square root of 4 is 2. So I've got negative 8 plus or minus 2I square root of 39 divided by 10. This is my exact answer, and I really can't go a whole lot further. I can reduce a little bit. I see that all three of these terms are divisible by 2, so I can do that and get negative 4 plus or minus I square root of 39 over 5, right? 8 divided by 2 is 4, 2 divided by 2 is 1, 10 divided by 2 is 5. So I simplified it, but I can't go any further. I cannot give you an exact answer, or I can't round it to the nearest tenth because it is imaginary. So this, friends, is my solution. And that is all I have for today's lesson. Hope this made sense. Hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you have a fantastic day.